Hello all, this is Kalde and it is now day 6 of the IAE 2952 and it's of course meaning we have a lovely mixed day again of 4 manufacturers as in Krueger Intergalactic, Grey Cat, Consolidated Outland and Argo. 2 of those are interesting, 2 of them are not, you will soon find out which one. Let's go through the usual rigmarole for the buyer's guide. We're going to take a quick look at the lovely display where everything is, and then we will go over things in more detail. There's not going to be too many ships around the place today because it is of course fairly small stuff. Let's start with the lower level. Hollow Suite, we have the Argo SRV. Ship recovery vehicle, of course, it's in essence your tow tug in space. These things are going to be very useful, especially on an organizational level. I probably expect them maybe they will do some cargo operations, but primarily, of course, just, rescuing ships that are stranded and things like that. So if you have a organization of some size, then it's always handy to have a couple of these things around just in case you need one. They are, of course, highly, highly specific, and for that reason, it's not the ship I would recommend for a small group or a solo player. The Consolidated Outland Pioneer, our big base building ship. I mean, I love it. I love the whole idea of base building. Our organization is going to be focusing on base building, so I'm absolutely biased towards this ship. But besides all of that, it is the only ship really in this profession that does the job, and lore-wise it is the one that broke open this market. So I assume that this ship will be able to do a little bit more than the standard basic square prefab things. So it is going to be one of those ships that is going to be a good money maker. That said, you're going to be looking at least a medium level of organization in order to properly support one, because it needs to be supplied, protected and all of those things. So there is something to keep in mind, and of course it comes at a steep price tag. However, a steeper price tag I find on industrial ships is easier to deal with than on a military vessel, simply because an industrial ship's primary purpose is to make you money. And I think that the Pioneers will be very good money earners overall. And of course they are a hull limited ship, so whether or not I say it's poor or bad value, you want to buy one. Hover quads, Grey Cat stuff, like it's ground vehicles, the usual things apply, just buy them in game, they're not worth buying for real money. The Argo MPUV, I mean, it is fun in a way, but honestly it's really not that great of a ship. So it's not one that I would recommend you acquire. Argo Mole, I mean it's the multi-crew mining ship, it is still very good. Of course the balancing is a little bit in between, they're trying to get it all sorted again I believe. But it's a really good money maker right now and it will continue to be in the future. And it's of course the nice thing about the Mole is that it's good for like a smaller group of people. So even if you're just yourself with 2 friends, that's a really good ship to have. But also in smaller and even larger organizations, these things will have a role, as in mining more dedicated, like high value sort of materials. Of course, when it comes to the really large scale, you're looking at the Orion later on. The Argo Raft cargo holder, I mean, it's really good value for a 96 SCU cargo holder. It looks really cool. And it's probably going to be one of those ships that's going to be really needed once we get the vessels like the Misc Hull series in for the larger ones, which are not going to be landing on planets. So ships like these will, I think the primary role later on will be just shuttling stuff from the surface to the spaceport or surface to a spaceship. I mean, mate, can you just sort of, let's go over here when it's not annoying players around. Last, of course, we have the Consolidated, the Mustang series, and yeah, Mustangs, honestly speaking at this point, not a starter ship I recommend. When it comes to the starter ships, like the Cutter is just a cut above all of the other ones. So all of the other starters are no longer on the recommendation list at all. The Nomad, of course, is a slight upgrade over your standard starter. But personally, my go-to would still be a Adventure Titan over the Nomad. I just believe they are more capable, and the Nomad's profile is rather bulky as well, which doesn't help. And of course, external cargo means your cargo is going to be more vulnerable versus an internal storage on a Titan. So, with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at everything in a little bit more detail, let's start downstairs with the hollow ships, and then we just go back upstairs to look at the beautiful Argo ships. I do like the Argo ships. It's like one of the manufacturers that does something properly. I mean, I will say, by a quick side note, these hover bikes from Consolidated Island, they look really cool. I do have one, but again, like, just buy them in game. Like, the ground vehicles, when it comes to these smaller ones that are primarily just get around vehicles, like, if you want to have one, buy them in game. There's no bad value there. So don't be like, don't say like don't buy them for real money. Doesn't mean don't buy them at all. It just means don't buy them when it comes to like flying them around in game. So this is of course our towboat. There's a light here. Like, just move these things around. So that's it here also for cargo towing. So probably gonna see a mix of like probably rafts, for example, that move the containers. They'll then jettison them in space, and then these SRVs will move them towards the hull series, and then they will be attached to the hull series, and off they go. Which is one of those things, like, I do expect that the loading and unloading process of a hull series is going to take a substantial amount of time. Like, they are of course comparable to our modern day container vessels, and while they are unloaded and loaded insanely quickly for how large they are, it is still a process that takes, depending on the scale of the ship and how many containers need to be pushed, from a couple of hours to a couple of days. So these ships will take you a substantial amount of time, and that means that there is going to be a job for these ships all around. That said, it is going to be something that you really have to want to do if you're going to buy the ship for that, because I think it's going to get somewhat autonomous. But if that's what you want, by all means get one. And otherwise, as I said, if you're having a medium large level organization, you just want these ships around because you want to have a tuck to move ships around. We may even see a case, because I believe that these things can also tuck things through quantum. And may at some point, like, that's some efficiency gains perhaps in just tucking larger ships around so they don't have to use their own drives, but that's just pure speculation. Now here of course the Pioneer, the big manufacturing ship. I really, really like it, and I like how much more we're seeing with what base building is going to be, and I hope that's going to be expanded, and this ship is just going to be, I think, core to some levels of organization like our own, which is ISTI, Interstellar Investment Group, and then we are going to be running, that's our holding corporation. So roleplay wise, there are going to be different organizations below that. One of those is going to be Skylar Industries, which is going to be focused on building. But any, like, especially large level organization, if you want to have that in your own hand, of course you're going to need these ships to build your industrial bases, and also perhaps just like repair bases. Like, if you're going to be a PMC, you may not want to do this yourself, but then you're going to be hiring a corporation who builds stuff for you, and they can just give you like, hey, I want repair and resupply depots in a lot of different places, so that when we're operating, we're never too far away from a home base where we can bring ships down to have them resupplied, repaired, and all of those things. So there's going to be a lot of needs for construction, and of course with PvP a lot of those locations are also going to be attacked frequently. So it's going to be a continuous business in the verse, and as the game is going to be ever expanding when it gets finally into a beta state and things get persistent, it's a endless cycle. So there's always going to be work for these ships. But as I said, they're going to need at least a medium level organization to support them, simply because they need to be defended, they need to be supplied, and you probably need some workers to actually operate the damn thing. So that is something to keep in mind. Maybe if you run a single one, you can get away with a smaller level organization if you're operating in safer areas, but it is a more risky proposition perhaps at that point. But we'll have to wait and see. In the end, when it comes to it value-wise, as I said, it's an industrial vessel. It is going to make you a lot of money in-game, so any vessel that makes you money in-game is going to be worth having in-game as well. And that's of course the thing when it comes to these military vessels. It's like, yes, as a PMC or as a mercenary level organization or pirates, you could make money from them, but it's probably not going to be the most effective way of making money. And for the most part, military vessels are going to be a cost factor that you just need because you need to defend your other assets. So the cargo and PUV, like if you want one of these things, literally just buy one in-game. They are, quite frankly, relatively useless. They're just like the little this was like the original like shuttlecraft idea for like the thing they used these on the Idris. But when I look at this thing and I look like, oh, I want the shuttlecraft, and I look at the Pisces, I just think that the Pisces is a better design in that regard. I think this thing is relatively bulky for what it really offers you in regards to the capacities that it offers. The Mole, I mean, it is by now a vulnerable veteran, multi-crew mining ship. Like, probably 2 people can run it, but ideally, of course, you want to be running it with 4 people. So you got 1 pilot and then 3 people on the lasers. You can run it also with 3, and then the pilot, for example, moves down to the main laser whenever you're at a rock, which is honestly in some ways more efficient. Because like but then depends on how quick the mining is these days. It has been a while since I actually done mining, so not entirely aware of the current full situation on that. As I said, it's great for a smaller group, but also larger groups for like more targeted level mining, like you really want to extract certain harder resources. When it comes to like the cheaper materials and bulk extraction, that's just going to be taken over entirely by large organizations running Orions. Because those things are just going to be munching up entire asteroid fields for a living. Which means that for you as a smaller miner, that's not going to be your core focus. So that means probably if you want to run one of these ships, you may want to have some sort of a survey ship like a Terrapin alongside with it. So you can go out there, survey a asteroid belt, mark interesting areas where you want to go mine, and then you can bring the ship in to go ahead and mine. Not sure if they still want to have the idea that we can drop these cargo containers, because that was of course an original plan, so that way the Mole itself can stay on station a lot longer. And then you can have perhaps something like a raft over here to go ahead and pick them up and move those containers to a station or planet-side base. The raft, of course, here is a relatively bulky, chunky ship, where you can really see that it is designed for this movement of like, okay, I'm gonna pick up some containers, move them somewhere over there, drop them off, and repeat this back and forth. This is a ship that's gonna be running ideally just a large frequency of short-range trips. Right now, of course, we use it as a inter-system cargo carrier at times, but I don't think that's gonna be its main role once the first really goes out, because you're probably gonna be running much higher bulks for goods around. Let's say you may see it at most running between like moons and planets. But this is probably not the ship that you're going to be running in between planets, because it doesn't really have enough capacity for that to make it efficient. The main job, as I said, is going to be moving containers from a surface to space, where it can then be loaded on board a larger cargo ship that is not able to land on a planet, so it can only dock to a station. Beyond that, of course, the value right now, it's really good. It is flight ready. You can go out there. So if you want to have a cargo hauler ship, this is actually a really good way to get into the market. 96 SGF cargo, I think $125. It's not a bad price at all. And it really can get you going. And cargo hauling, like trading in game right now, is still a very profitable profession. So certainly do not look down on it in that regard. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last bit, of course, of the consolidated offerings over here in Hall 2. So when it comes to Consolidated Outland, of course, they are a bit like somewhat like trying to be edgy and newer, fancy style manufacturer. Some people get something like, oh, maybe like a Tesla or so, of course, but then with the reputation that Tesla has these days, probably you don't want to be associated with it. But yeah, Mustang series, as I said, startership wise, the only one I really recommend at this point is the Cutter. Yes, the Mustang series look a lot better. There's no denying that. They do look a lot better. But they don't offer the same level of capabilities that the Cutter does. Only exception is combat wise, the Mustang series will be a better combat ship. Like, these things can remain relatively dangerous and capable to a far higher degree than any of the other starters. But then again, the whole idea, of course, of a starter, so you probably want to get out of it as soon as you can, so you can fly something else. As I said, against all starter ships, they're solo ships. Don't, like, as soon as you go up in scale, like, you want to have something more than that. Finally, the Nomad. As I said, I'm not a great fan of this ship. I just prefer the Titan over it in many ways. I think this one is just too bulky for what it really does. Not very efficient. You have external cargo, which means your cargo is more vulnerable to taking damage. Of course, like, it takes the rock along with you, so for some mining expeditions you could use it like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a little bit, honestly, a failed design as it comes to its capabilities. Now, feel free, of course, to disagree with me on that one. But I really think if you want to have an upgrade over your starter ship, you're going to be looking at a Titan series ship. And after a Titan level ship, you're probably looking at a Drake Cutlass series, or a Misk Freelancer, or perhaps even a Crusader Spirit series of vessel. It's a little bit of your transition when it comes to ship upgrades. Of course, once you get above that level, like, at some point you're gonna be looking to specialize more and more. So you're getting less and less multi-role. Like, your multi-role pretty much ends at a level of a Constellation or a Drake Corsair. Afterwards, you really are looking at specialized vessels. With the Nomad over here, it is a solo ship, of course. But for me, yeah, just get a Titan. I think it will serve you a lot better than the Nomad will. And again, like, it is a ship that you should be planning on from upgrading onwards. Like, you really want to have yourself based well in the verse. For starting out, my recommendation is going to be to have a Drake Cutlass series, Misk Freelancer, or like a Crusader Spirit series of ship. If you want to go for the combat roles, you're going to be looking at like an Arrow or a Gladius, you know, that level. They're all in that 100 to 130-ish price range. And they are, of course, like, it's a lot of money, like, for a single game, let's be honest. But then again, for a project like this, that is just, you know, fairly reasonable in comparison. And those are the ships that are going to set you up really nicely for whatever roles you want to do. Of course, you can spend more and more and more. And like I said, the more expensive a single ship gets, generally the better the value gets. But yeah, these, for me, anything that is like a starter to like the Nomad or the Titans, these are ships that your goal should be to upgrade from them into something that is more capable in the direction of what you really want to be doing. So, with that all said, that was it for this day. Gonna be a little bit of a shorter one, of course. There's not that much on offer. I do hope, as always, that it's been useful for you to get you some buying advice in regards to the ships are available. And I thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.